The day the sky burned. The sky over Tierra Nova was a perfect shade of blue, the kind that made people forget they lived on an alien world. Captain Elias Grayson leaned against his truck, watching his daughter, Lily, chase butterflies in the garden. His wife, Anna, laughed as she called her inside for lunch. Then the sky turned to fire. A massive explosion ripped through the city center. The shockwave knocked Elias off his feet. His ears rang, and the world blurred as flames erupted from the skyline. Corthian warships, sleek, predatory, and unmistakable, descended like vultures, their plasma cannons leveling buildings in seconds. Panic surged through the streets. Civilians ran screaming as alien dropships rained down, deploying squads of hulking Corthian soldiers clad in obsidian armor. They moved with terrifying efficiency, mowing down anyone in their path. Elias pulled himself up, his military instincts kicking in. "Anna, Lily." His voice was drowned by the roar of destruction. He turned to see his wife clutching their daughter, eyes wide with terror. Then a plasma bolt tore through Anna's chest. She crumpled lifeless, still holding Lily. Elias's mind shattered. He stumbled forward, dropping to his knees. His daughter's sobs barely reached his ears over the chaos. A Corthian soldier loomed over them, rifle raised. Rage overcame grief. Elias lunged, grabbing a fallen Marine's combat knife and driving it into the alien's throat. The Corthian gurgled and collapsed. Elias scooped Lily into his arms and ran. Across the city, Sergeant Daniel Dagger Kovacs fought to hold the planetary defense outpost. The Corthians had struck fast, disabling most of their heavy weapons. His men were down to rifles and grit. "Hold the line!" Kovacs barked. Plasma blasts melted cover around them. A squadmate took a hit and fell, screaming. A crackling transmission broke through the static. "Defenses are gone. HQ is compromised. Survive if you can." Kovacs gritted his teeth. There was no reinforcement coming. Then, a rumbling. The sky glowed green as the Corthians deployed their ultimate weapon, an atmospheric disruptor bomb. Kovacs barely had time to curse before the explosion devoured the city. Elias woke in the rubble, body aching. Lily still clutched against him. The once thriving colony was now a graveyard. Smoke curled from burning buildings. The air reeked of scorched flesh. A Corthian broadcast echoed through the streets. "You are not worthy of empire. You are an infestation to be cleansed." Elias stood, eyes cold with fury. He found a discarded rifle. They assaulted his home. They took his family. Now, he would take everything from them. The resistance awakens. The fires still smoldered. The air was thick with the acrid stench of charred bodies and metal. Tierra Nova was gone. Elias Grayson moved through the ruins, his rifle clutched tight, his daughter asleep in a sling on his chest. He had found shelter in the underground tunnels beneath the city, once used for maintenance. Now the last refuge for survivors. He wasn't alone. Scattered remnants of the United Terran Marines had gathered in the tunnels, led by Sergeant Daniel Dagger Kovacs. He had barely survived the first assault, and his face bore fresh scars. Alongside them were civilians, scientists, medics, workers, people who had never held a weapon but were now willing to fight. Elias looked at them, their eyes hollow, their spirits crushed. He had been a soldier for years, but this was something different. This was personal. "We have two choices," Elias said, voice rough. "We wait here until they find us and kill us, or we take the fight to them." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Then Kovacs grinned, tapping his rifle. "About time we gave these alien bastards a reason to fear the dark." The first strike. That night, the resistance made their first move. Corthian patrols swept the ruins in tight formations, their glowing visors scanning for survivors. Elias and his team set traps, crude but effective. Wires strung between collapsed buildings, explosives ripped from fallen vehicles. The first patrol never saw it coming. As the lead Corthian stepped forward, a tripwire triggered a makeshift bomb. The explosion tore through the squad, sending burning wreckage flying. Before the remaining soldiers could react, resistance fighters opened fire from the rubble, cutting them down in a deadly crossfire. A victory. Small, but a victory. They scavenged weapons, armor, and, most importantly, comms equipment. Inside the enemy's network, Dr. Sarah Chun, a scientist who had worked at the Planetary Research Facility, cracked the Korthian communication network. What she found changed everything. They didn't attack us for resources, she told Elias and Kovacs, eyes grim. They did this as a message, to show the rest of the galaxy what happens when a species refuses to kneel. Elias clenched his fists. This wasn't war. This was extermination. Then we make them regret it, Kovacs growled. A bold plan. Using the stolen comms, they intercepted enemy supply movements. A Korthian weapons depot lay just beyond the ruins, guarded but vulnerable. We hit that depot, we cripple their ground forces, Elias planned. We show them we are not broken. The resistance prepared. Molotovs, jury-rigged bombs, stolen rifles. No fancy weapons, just sheer human ingenuity and defiance. As they moved out, Elias looked at his people. They weren't soldiers. They were survivors. And now, they were something more. They were warriors. The fury of humanity. The resistance struck at dawn. The Korthian Weapons Depot was a fortress of alien steel and plasma barriers, but it wasn't built to withstand human desperation. Elias Grayson and Sergeant Kovacs led the charge, moving through the ruins like ghosts. They had no tanks, no air support, only fire, explosives, and sheer human will. A stolen Korthian transport rumbled toward the gate, disguised as a routine supply run. Inside, Elias and 5 resistance fighters crouched low, weapons primed. His heart pounded. The moment the checkpoint guards waved them through, he whispered into his earpiece. Now! From the rubble, Kovacs and his team fired a high-powered rail spike straight into the security turret, disabling it in a shower of sparks. At the same moment, Elias tossed a plasma grenade into the nearest guard tower. The explosion shattered the silence. Then all hell broke loose. The battle for the depot. The resistance poured in, overwhelming the unprepared Korthians. Elias's rifle burned hot as he cut down the first wave of defenders. Sarah Chun, from a rooftop vantage point, hacked into the depot's power grid, plunging the facility into darkness. The Korthians, reliant on their visor tech, floundered. But humans? Humans knew how to fight in the dark. Kovacs led a brutal assault, using scavenged explosives to breach the storage bunkers. Inside were enough plasma rifles and heavy ordnance to supply an army. And they were about to become that army. The sky burns again. Suddenly, alarms shrieked. The ground rumbled as something massive descended from orbit. Elias looked up and felt his stomach drop. A Korthian warship hovered above, its cannons charging. They're gonna wipe the depot. Sarah's voice crackled over the comm. Elias didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward the Korthian anti-aircraft battery, a towering cannon built to shoot down Terran ships, but it would work just fine on one of their own. Kovacs and 2 fighters covered him, laying down suppressive fire as Elias climbed into the alien controls. The warship's cannons glowed ominously, ready to fire. Elias gritted his teeth. He didn't understand Korthian tech. Didn't need to. He slammed his fist onto every red button he could see. With a deafening roar, the anti-air cannon came to life. A single, massive plasma burst lanced into the sky. It struck the warship dead center. The explosion turned night into day. The turning point. Silence. Then a cheer erupted from the resistance. The depot was theirs. They had stolen the enemy's weapons, and they had brought down a Korthian warship. The impossible had happened. A transmission from Earth crackled through their stolen comms. Hold the line. Reinforcements are coming. Elias looked at his people, battle-worn but unbroken. Now, he said, gripping his rifle, we take back our world. Humanity's vengeance. The night sky over Tierra Nova burned, but this time, it was not human cities in flames. It was Korthian warships. Earth had answered. The United Terran Alliance, UTA, fleet dropped out of hyperspace, led by the dreadnought Indomitable. Hundreds of Terran warships engaged the Korthian armada in high orbit, railguns and plasma cannons unleashing a storm of destruction. Drop pods and assault craft rained down, delivering thousands of battle-hardened Marines to the surface. The counterattack had begun. The final battle. Elias Grayson stood at the edge of the ruined city, his scavenged Corthian rifle slung across his back. Around him, the resistance fighters, now armed with alien weapons, prepared for their final assault. Behind them, UTAC drop pods slammed into the battlefield like meteors, Marines spilling out, weapons blazing. Sergeant Kovacs lit a cigar, smirking. "Told you we'd make it, Cap." Elias nodded. "Let's finish this." The Corthians were in full retreat, their ground forces collapsing under the combined fury of the resistance and UTA reinforcements. But Elias had one last objective. Commander Zelzor, the Corthian warlord who had ordered the attack on Tierra Nova, was still alive. He and his elite guards had fortified themselves inside the Planetary Control Center, a towering structure that once housed the colonial government. Elias wasn't interested in prisoners. Storming the fortress, the resistance and UTA Marines breached the control center with overwhelming force. Grenades shattered defenses, and railgun fire ripped through alien armor. The Corthians fought like cornered beasts, but humanity was relentless. Elias and Kovacs fought their way to the top floor, cutting through Zelzor's bodyguards. The Corthian commander, once so proud and arrogant, now cowered behind a control panel, plasma pistol trembling in his clawed hand. Elias leveled his rifle at him. "You assaulted our home." Zelzor bared his fangs. "Your species was meant to kneel." Elias pulled the trigger. One shot, right between the eyes. The war was over. No mercy, no surrender. Across the planet, the last Corthian forces surrendered, those who weren't hunted down by vengeful Terran soldiers. In orbit, the UTA broadcasted a message to the remaining Corthian forces across the galaxy. "This is what happens when you attack humanity." The response from the Corthian High Command? Silence. The reckoning. The war did not end on Tierra Nova. The UTA, fueled by righteous fury, launched a full-scale invasion of Corthian space. One by one, Corthian colonies fell. Their warlords were dragged from their thrones, their fleets shattered. The once mighty empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries collapsed under the relentless advance of humanity. Elias, standing before a memorial of the fallen, knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had changed. They were no longer prey. Now they were the hunters,